Good morning, all of you. Okay, now all of you, first of all, mute your phones and pay attention. We are going to continue the remaining part of the lesson, effects of British rule. But before that, just I will revise. I have given the homework to you, but then also I will revise what we have studied here. In this lesson, first we studied the establishment of East India Company. We studied the establishment of East India Company, how East India Company came here and established their rule. In the second point we have studied Maratha and British struggle, at how British defeated Marathas. Then we studied the Wellesley's policy of subsidiary alliance. How Lord Wellesley here made Indian rulers to sign the subsidiary alliance, and because of this, all Indian rulers lost their freedom. In the During the last time we studied other policies of British. When British captured the Bengal, at that time they first introduced the policy of dual government. In dual government, we know that British collected the revenue and told the Nawab to protect the territory. This was the dual government policy. But subsidiary alliance, which was signed afterwards by Indians, it was different. In that, British protected the territory. They employed their one British officer in the Indian court, and they collected the here payments of the soldiers, and all those rulers, those who were not able to pay the payments, in return they collected some land from them. In this way, they started to establish their rule. But by this time to time, parliamentary laws were enacted. British government was paying attention towards the East India Company and East for regulating the activities in India. British started many parliamentary laws. First, in 1773, the British Regulating Act. Why regulating acts were passed? One thing was British government officers started to do the private trade, and that's why that private trade was not beneficial for the British government. That's why East India Company, to control the East India Company officers, these acts were passed. First was the Regulating Act, then afterwards Pitt's Act of 1784. This was advanced. Some more points were introduced in this, and later on in 1813, 1833, and 1853, different parliamentary acts were introduced. Now, in this way, British tried to control the here East India Company. Then afterwards, civil service we studied. Now, British wanted that here in India to establish the firm hold over Indian government, Indian country. They needed the help of Indians. They also wanted that some officers should be there, and intelligent officers should be there to control India. And that's why British introduced the Indian Civil Service, that is ICS examinations. Now, what is these ICS examinations and what for what it was? Here Cornwallis, Lord Cornwallis, here he divided the Indian territory into different districts, and he decided to appoint one collector to all the districts. And this work of the collector was to collect the revenue, to keep control over give the judgment, to control over the law, that is law and order, that is justice. At the same time, to also have an internal control, that is police force. So in this way, law and order, justice, and to collect the revenue was the work of collector. And for this purpose, the intelligent person was needed. And for this purpose, British introduced the ICS examinations, which were held in England. And in England or in Britain, this examination, all those who were passing these examinations were appointed as officers in India. So old East Indian officers which were corrupted, they were replaced by these new officers like collectors. This is the Indian civil service examination. Then, in this, we also have studied the military policy of British and police force. Military, most of the Indian military of British military, that is East India Company's military, was the in this military the Sipahi or the soldiers were Indians, but the officers were British. Same was in the police also. High grade posts were in the hand of the British and British people, and low grade posts were in the hand of here Indian people. Now, what was the work of this military and police? Military was to protect the territory, newly here acquired territory in India, and police was to see the internal here activities, that is to safeguard the society. That was the work of police. Military also was keeping check on the uprising or discontent people. Anywhere there is a uprising, anywhere there is a mutiny, this military used to curb. This was the work of this. Judicial system was introduced. Now, old judicial system of India was different, and new judicial system of British was different. Old Indian system was such that many Indian rulers used to have their own here law. But when British came, they established their own power all over India, and at that time they introduced their here own judicial system, which was uniform. That is one law all over the India. It was same for the king as well as same for the common man. Then it was on the principle of here equality, fraternity, which was based on England. Same just like English here law, there was law in India. They introduced that, but this law was in this law again they have some them kept some drawbacks that they have given special rights to the British people in India. Now these laws, Indian people were not knowing about this English language and how to put forth your, their own your petition and other things. They were not able to put forth the petitions uh, in the court. Besides this, to put forth the petition in the court, there was a need to pay some money, and Indian people were not knowing all about this, and that's why in these laws we find that many times most of the laws remain pending, or people in India were not able to go themselves to the court. And in the beginning, it was very difficult for Indians. Later on, we'll see the here we have seen that economic policies of British. Now we are going to study the remaining part. Economic policies of British India. Now, here this is very important because British had established their rule only to earn profit because they were by birth they were merchants. This East India Company was a merchant company and their intention was to earn money. Now, how they implemented new policies in India? But before that, you should know how was economy in India before the British. Before British in India, there was economy. That economy we can say that villages in India were self-sufficient. All the things were produced in India and they were consumed in the village itself. They were produced in village and they were consumed in village. All people were taking care of each other. Most of the time, barter system was there. And that's why economy was self-sufficient. But when British, before that, some many other things had also come in India. Many Indian people, we know that though Indian economy was self-sufficient at that time in India, we have seen that many invaders Many invaders came in India. Many, we can say, the Muslim invaders, yeah, Babur. Before that, we can say Ghazni and many other. Okay, they came in India. They came in India. They defeated Indians. They started to rule in India. But after some times, they became mixed in India in such a way that all these invaders became the part and parcel of Indian life. But they did not disrupt the old economic policy. They did not disrupt the village life or village economy. Okay, they that's why the old economic policy remained same in India, though there were so many inventions before in India. But when English came and defeated Indians, when British companies started to rule in India, at that time their aim was to benefit their motherland, which was there in England. For their motherland, they wanted to give the benefits, and they wanted to give it in the form of cash. They wanted to give the benefit to the motherland in the form of cash, money. That's why we know now that England came here, they adopted the new policies. First, because British had the in England there was the industrial revolution. British started to cultivate the here many goods, or they started to produce, not cultivate, they started to produce many goods in on machine, and that's why their production was more. Their production was more, and that production was qualitative. At the same time, their rates were less. In India also there were some industries, cottage industries were there. India was well, in the beginning there were many cottage industries in India, handloom industries were there, people were preparing saris and many other things. Okay, but when industrial goods came in India at that time, Indian government, Indian productions was not able to get profit. British first adopted the one policy that they here decrease the tax on the imported goods, and they increase the tax on the exported goods. Means when Indian merchant wanted to sell the goods, he has to give more tax, and that's why in foreign countries the good was to be sold at the high rate. And when Indian has British used to bring the goods in India, at that time they have to pay less tax, and that's why the rate of that in India was less. That's why Indian people started to buy the foreign goods, and that's why Indian industry was ruined. This was the first, we can say, effect of the capital economy. Second, we will see now here, they adopted the policy which was suited to them. Now I told them in this way their policy was such that Indian industry should be ruined and they should get their own industry should be developed. This was the first policy. Second, then we come to the land revenue policy. I have told you that here British adopted the new land revenue policy. In the before British in India also there were many kings ruling. All the villages were self-sufficient. Okay, they were here happy or satisfied within what they were in villages. But when British came, at that time, first thing here, British British changed the old structure of Indian economy, especially village economy. In villages in the old days, they used to cultivate the crops, and whatever crops were cultivated from that, some share was given to the king as a revenue. And so whatever crops were cultivated from that, some share was going. And by chance, if there was no production or some famines or some any other calamity comes and there was no production of the crops, then Indian king used to give some concessions. There was a yeah some concession given to the Indian villagers, and that's why Indian people were cooperating with each other. But when British came in India, they changed the revenue system. They calculated total land, okay, yeah, and then they brought the new structure. What they did, they said that here you should pay the tax in the form of cash. That is, you should not pay the tax in the form of goods or food grains. Indian have to pay the tax in the form of cash. Second thing, they told the Indian people to do the more and more, produce more and more cash crops. Now Indians needed cash. In the old days, now needed money, and British gave the cash crops like cotton, sugar, sugarcane, okay, jute, indigo, and Indian villagers now started to, instead of cultivating food grains, many Indian villagers started to here cultivate the cash crops. But when cash crops were produced at that time, Indian people, they reduced the prices. British reduced the prices, or the merchants of here East India Company merchants reduced the prices of the cash crops, and there was loss to the Indian farmer. Indian farmers were exploited. Indian villages were not able to give the here land revenue in cash in time. At the same times, they have to here sell their land. Sometimes they have to mortgage their land, and slowly, slowly, because of this new revenue policy, rich Indian farmer, which was self-sufficient in within the what he was producing, started to become poor and poor. He only remained as a laborer. And here the zamindars, then afterwards here saukars, zamindars, British merchants, everybody exploited the farmer, and farmer lost his self-identity. In this way, it was a very bad effect in the India that farmers lost the prestige. Here, that is the, we can say, land revenue system and consequences of new land revenue system. I have told you. Again, third is also I have told you commercialization of agriculture. So I will read these points. Okay, here all 3 points I have covered now: land revenue system, consequences of new land system, and commercialization of agriculture. These 3 points are covered in this. So just I will read through it. Pay attention, and if you have any problem, ask me. Land revenue policy. Before the British, the village economy system was self-sufficient. Though agriculture and related services through agriculture and related services, the needs of villages were fulfilled in the village itself. Land revenue was the main source of the income of the state. During the pre-British period, revenue was based on the type of cultivated crop. The farmer was exempted from taxation in case of loss of crop. Revenue was mainly collected in the form of grains. Even in case of late payments of tax, the farmer's land was not confiscated. Confiscated means it was not. It confiscate म्हणजे हिसकावून घेणे. Okay? एखादी गोष्ट काढून घेणे. To increase income, the British made important changes in the revenue system. Now see here. Now what changes they did? British. They made the here important changes in revenue system. Land was measured, and as per the area of the land, the tax was fixed. Payment of tax was made compulsory in the form of cash. If the farmer failed to pay tax in time, then his land was confiscated. The British system of land revenue collection differed from place to place, which lead to exploitation of the farmers. I explained all this, how the Indian people were exploited in the farming system. Consequences now. There were undesirable effects on the new land revenue system. Undesirable effects means we can say what are the effects I told you now. First, for payment of taxes, Indian farmers started selling the crops at the whatever price it received, they wanted to pay in the cash. The tax was to be paid in tax, and that's why those who produce the food grains, they have to sell the food grains in whatever price they need. Those who produce the commercial crops, they were forced to sell it at the less price because people were not able to eat the cotton, they were not able to eat jute, they were not able to eat indigo, and they can't keep it at home. They have to sell it, and that was to be sold at whatever price the merchants demand. The merchants here give. In this way, it was very difficult consequence. I will see, I will read it, you will find it. The merchants and the brokers started purchasing their goods at minimum rate. At certain times, the farmer had to mortgage his land. Mortgage म्हणजे गहाण ठेवणे, दुसऱ्याला देणे. Okay? Many times, farmers had to mortgage his land to pay money here to the money lenders to pay the tax to the government. They took mortgage to the money lenders, money lender, saukar. Okay? Then farmers became bankrupt, दिवाळखोरी. शेतकरी दिवाळखोर झाला. जो श्रीमंत स्वतःच एक अस्तित्व असलेला, एक पूर्वीच्या काळी शेतकऱ्याला खूप प्रतिष्ठा होती, प्रतिष्ठा असलेला हा शेतकरी पूर्णतः दिवाळखोर झाला. म्हणजे त्याला स्वतःच अस्तित्व राहिलं नाही, तो दुसऱ्याचा दास झाला. ड्युरिंग द टाइम ऑफ ब्रिटिश, फर्स्ट टाइम Indian farmer became so, here we can miserable, so miserable, त्याची इतकी अवस्था दयनीय झाली आहे की त्याला स्वतःच जीवन नकोस झालं. In this way, it became very terrible condition of Indian farmers was made by the British economic policies. Only they wanted the benefits. That's why it happened. Farmers became bankrupt in cases of non-repayment of loan. The farmer had to sell his land. The farmer was exploited by the government. Zamindars, moneylenders, merchants, all were exploiting the farmer. Now, commercialization of agriculture, that is another thing. Initially, Indians cultivated the food grains which were consumed in the house. For example, paddy, or jawar, rice, wheat. These were the crops which were consumable for yearly needs. People used to use it at home, and remaining, if it is excess, then they used to sell. Some part they used to give to the king as a revenue, and they were giving it willingly. But now, when British started, they forced that they calculated the land. They wanted the cash crops, that they wanted the raw material for their your factories, industries. That's why they told to produce indigo, they told to produce cotton, they told to produce here jute. And in this way, because their factories should run in England, they wanted to give the raw material to their own country, and they wanted to prepare the fresh goods from that. They want to sell it in India. And Indians also thought that they will get cash in hand. Indian farmers thought they will get cash in hand, and if they get cash in hand, then afterwards they will pay it to the government and they will live a good life. But when what happens here, many started to cultivate the cash crops, and what were the effects we see? Initially, food grains were cultivated by the farmers. It used to fulfill the domestic need as well as the need of the village. The British government started giving more encouragement to the cash crops like cotton, indigo, tobacco, etc. The process of giving stress on cultivation of profit giving cash crop instead of food grains is known as commercialization of agriculture. And we know that commercialization of agriculture was done, and we know that because of this commercialization of the agriculture, British Indians started to produce that crop, and they were in trouble. They lost their even lands. They have to say they had to sell the lands also. Now that time, till here we have completed this. Now we'll see the famine. What were the effects of famine which took place in India in those days? Famines means what? Here, dushka. Okay. Okay. Famines, dushka. In 1860 to 1900, 1860 to 1900. This period, nearly 40 years, okay, in this period, in this era, in this timing, Indians had to face many times here the famines. But when during the time of famine, now what happened? Indian British started to do the in India before also there were many famines, not only in this period. But during that time, Indian rulers, those Mughals or Nizams or Marathas or here, other dynasties, everywhere in Karnataka, in other South India, many other dynasties, Indian dynasties, okay, Shilahars and various other, okay, all dynasties, whenever there was a famine-like condition, at that time they used to give help to the Indian farmers, and then they used to make how many years their famine may be. At that time, they used to keep them to stand on themselves. You know that Shivaji Maharaj's mother, Jizabai, also here when there was famine in Pune at that time also, Jizabai, what she did, she herself, all the Pune was totally separated. It was totally people were had left the Pune and farmers went outside because of that famine you have said last year. But Jizabai herself, as a king, she took, or a queen, she took the charge of the farmers and she herself entered in the farm to cultivate crops and told farmers to recultivate it. During the time of famine, Jizabai gave maximum help to the people. The same thing was doing by the Indian, all other Indian kings were doing that time. But when British came here, they did not pay attention towards the problems of Indians, East India Company. This was a very problematic case. Okay, British did not take much here effect, much efforts to overcome it. Similarly, not much here expenditure was made on the provision of water supply also, and that's why during this time, agriculture was totally destroyed. People lost their own money and other things. Remaining those farmers, those who had managed by doing the commercial agriculture or managed by doing the hard work, able to pay the tax, they also lost their own here land during the time of these famines because they were not able to pay their loans, they were not able to pay the tax, and in this way they lost their own identity. Here we'll stop here. Okay, I will give the question answers. Here questions to you. Please return right now. Okay, be ready. Pay attention. सांस ने कानविलकर सांस ने unmute your phone. Paras. Okay, pay attention. Some here question answers for homework. Okay, sorry, for questions for homework. Hello? Ah, write down, write down. Write down the questions. First question. Write the effects. Write the effects of economic policies. Write the effects of economic policies on Indian farmers. Give reasons. Second is give reasons. Samjiskar, your photo is there. You are not there. Samjiskar. But you. Okay, pay attention now. Okay, okay, little bit. Second question, give reasons. There was a decline. There was a decline of traditional industries in India. There was decline of traditional industries in India. So these two questions, okay, and fill in the blanks which is there behind the lesson. You complete, okay. Wait a minute, huh? I will say the other things now. 24 students are there. Okay, let it wait. You can here only 2 3 minutes are left. Okay, you can have any. Do you have any problem in understanding now? Angel, Angel, Angel. Sit properly. Angel. Uh, Second question. There was decline. Give reasons, huh? Give reasons. There was decline of traditional industries in India. There was decline of traditional industries in India. These two questions. Okay. Okay. Just now tell me. This is the today is the first we can say actually properly I have recorded it. Was there any problem? Any disturbance? You were able to see the board and everything? Okay. Okay. So we'll continue like this. But one problem is there. See here, when I on this main video at that time here, what you are doing, I can't see on the board. It is your duty. Okay. Now I can see what everybody what you are doing. Okay. But when I on that video at that time, I will not be able to see that. So it is your duty now. Okay. Do the homework. Yesterday's homework, day before yesterday, homework was given to you. Have you completed? Have you completed that? Okay. What was the homework given? हा सांग कुठले कुठले आहेत काय का जरा क्वेश्चन दोन्ही लिहिले का हा पहिला क्वेश्चन कुठला कुठला लिहिलाय हा सिव्हिल सर्व्हिसेस ओके हॅव यू रिटन दॅट others also okay send me that on the phone with this whatsapp my whatsapp okay personal whatsapp okay send the homework to me okay enough thank you okay now the meeting has been completed well, sir. Thank you second here we have geography okay we have geography also all join in time today go on the link and see the timing okay, thank you